Right, so a bid to amend the Constitution to allow for land expropriation without compensation has fallen flat, the ANC failing to get the two-thirds majority it needs to pass the amendment. Most opposition parties rejecting it, saying it was not necessary. Lindsay Dentlinger has been following the debate. She joins me now. Hello, Lindsay. So this process, you know, it's been long in coming, 3 years, a committee meeting that has battled to get agreement, and of course then the vote failing, with both sides of the opposition saying no. Take us through the debate highlights first.
So, Sally, I think going into this debate, I think there was a sense of resignation really from the ANC that they were not going to be successful in getting this piece of legislation over the line, and much of their remarks and their comments hitting out at opposition parties. Firstly, the chairperson of this ad hoc committee, Matola Machega, calling them an unholy alliance, the opposition parties who would inevitably band together and vote against this. And then there was RONALD, LAMOLA, the Justice Minister, lashing out at the EFF, saying they were more interested in populist rhetoric rather than really the issues at heart in terms of land reform and the legal instruments required to make this happen. So it really became pot shots from the ANC side, lashing out towards the opposition, because I think they went into this debate knowing they were on a hiding to nothing in terms of getting a two-thirds majority. In fact, 75% they would really need to effect a change to the Constitution. But as far as the opposition parties went, Sally, they stuck by their position they've held mostly for the last 3 years, and that is some of those, like the DA, feeling that there is no need to amend the Constitution. The Freedom Front Plus agrees, saying the Constitution already paves the way for land expropriation without compensation. And of course the EFF really would have turned out to be the kingmaker in this whole process from the very onset. Let's not forget they were the ones who initiated this motion back in 2018, that the state custodianship of land, that was their insistence again today. They said they couldn't support, despite little tweaks that the ANC have made in recent months that have really gotten the opposition's backs up, and which were raised again during debate today, to include some form of custodianship. And so the EFF was saying that there was just no way they were going to back this. But let's take a listen to some of those extracts from that debate today, Sally.
We reject the assertion of nil compensation simply because it is vague and will in essence provide for extra limited instances in which compensation could be at below the market value of the land. We now know that the process of expropriation bill, which ran parallel to the constitutional amendment process, has defined conditions under which land can be expropriated at nil compensation. These conditions include abandoned land, land that poses health and environmental risk, state land, etc. These do not constitute the type of land needed to comprehensively deal with the land question in this country.
The road that the economic freedom fighters want us to walk on is not only dangerous, it is backward. It is antithesis of economic freedom and democracy. Our land problem is not characterized by lack of state ownership. It is compounded by the lack of security of tenure for the majority of our citizens. Our people throughout the public hearings demanded to own their land themselves, not the state. We can't, as this House, give them less secure form of tenure.
So, Lindsay, that bill has failed to be passed. What now?
Well, Sally, nothing really. This whole process has come to naught. 3 years worth of first deciding whether the Constitution did indeed have to be amended. You remember they went across the country to get the views of the public on this, coming back to the House, deciding that it had to be amended, and then the last 2 years spent on the wording of this amendment and exactly how it would look. Now, in these last few months, a lot of backlash from opposition parties that this People's ad hoc committee that was tasked with writing this amendment was overstepping their boundaries in terms of what they were inserting, how they were wording this bill, what they were including, and a lot of that had to do with the issue of the custodianship of land. And we even had the EFF accusing Parliament's legal services of derailing this process. So all of this really, Sally, has come to naught. If this process is to be restarted, it will have to be done like we saw back in 2018 with a motion from either anybody really from any part of the House, but it would mean that this whole process would have to start afresh. And so it remains to be seen, Sally, where exactly parties take this. As I said, the view of the opposition is that this is just a totally unnecessary process. The DA's Glynis Breitenbach saying that if it were to have been passed, it would be subject to legal challenges. And so it remains to be seen, Sally, where we go next. But I think the focus will now be on the expropriation bill, which is something separate to this process, which involves not only land but buildings and other state property, and that has also been a long time coming, Sally, over a decade, and it is slowly making its way through the parliamentary process. And so that really, I think many will feel is maybe where the attention should really be paid, because they believe that the Constitution already paves the way for land expropriation without compensation, but really the legal instruments as to how exactly that process would unfold is spelled out in the expropriation bill, and that's really probably where Parliament will be setting its focus and all its attention in trying to get that piece of legislation passed through the House. And maybe though these two processes will somehow collide and come together, and also then give expression to how land might be expropriated without compensation.
All right, well, thank you so much, eNCA reporter in Parliament, Lindsay Dentlinger there.